Thank you for joining us in This Week in Turkey. I am Murat Türsan. Tonight, central bank holds fast on interest rate cut policy as the Lira continues to crash. Healthcare workers across Turkey walk out. Turkey continues to make attempts to mend relations with Armenia, and Medyascope has an exclusive with Selahattin Demirtaş. Our main story tonight, unfortunately, is more of the same. Central bank cuts interest rates, Ministry of Finance personnel are fired and replaced, and the Lira crashes. But a bit of good news, if perhaps not good enough. The minimum wage is increased by 50% for 2022, landing at 4,250 liras. That's a little over $260 today. We'll have Dr. Harun Öztürkler back with us to give us a rundown of the situation this week, but let's go to that story first.
Following the fourth meeting of the Minimum Wage Commission, President and AKP Chair Recep Tayyip Erdogan announced that the minimum wage for 2022 is 4,250 liras a month. Erdogan added that this was a 50% increase over the 2021 minimum wage. With this increase, I believe that we have demonstrated our determination not to crush our workforce in light of these price increases. Erdogan stated that income tax and stamp duty from the minimum wage has been cut this year. The minimum wage for 2021 was 3,577.5 liras per month gross for an unmarried worker, and 2,825.9 net after tax deductions. Meanwhile, the Monetary Policy Board of the Central Bank of the Republic of Turkey, chaired by Governor Şahap Kavcıoğlu, lowered the policy rate by 100 basis points from 15% to 14% after its ninth meeting this year. The Monetary Policy Board also alluded that it has decided to end the reduction of interest rates. The board has decided to lower the policy interest rates by 100 basis points and end the use of rate cuts, causing the temporary effects of supply side and incidental factors that are independent of the effects of the monetary policy. The cumulative effects of these decisions will be closely monitored in the first quarter of 2022. This is coming after the rate cut of a total of 500 basis points in the last 4 months by the Monetary Policy Board. Right after the rate cut announcement, the lira crashed once again. Starting out the day at 14.81 to a dollar, it jumped to 15.30 moments after the announcement and closed the day at approximately 15.5. Following Lütfi Elvan's resignation as the Ministry of Treasury and Finance, Deputy Ministers of Treasury and Finance Ercan Gül and Mehmet Hamdi Yıldırım were also dismissed and replaced by Mahmut Gürcan and Yunus Elitaş. Abdullah Bayazit, Director General of Public Finance of the Ministry of Treasury and Finance, and Ahmet Yalçınkaya, Director General of Economic Programs and Research, were also dismissed.
Back with us this week, Medyascope regular, Doctor of Econometrics, Dr. Harun Öztürkler. Doctor, it's good to have you back with us.
Nice being with you, Mr. Türsan. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure, sir. Now, let's get to it. Now, Doctor, let's start with perhaps the most consequential story this week. The minimum wage is set at 4,250 liras a month by the Minimum Wage Board. Payroll taxes are cut roughly by 10%. Do you think this minimum wage is sufficient, and could it have any effect on inflation whatsoever, like many are saying?
Mr. Türsan, it is, about how you look at it. To be honest, if you look at from the proportional rise in the minimum wage, yes, it is about 50% rise, and it's a significant rise considering the Turkish government's budget constraint. However, if you look at from the perspective of the hunger line and poverty line, it is significantly that rate is below both lines. Starvation line, hunger line in Turkey is about 5,000 Turkish lira, which is about 1,000 Turkish lira below it, 750 Turkish lira. And poverty line is 10,000 Turkish lira, so it's much more below the poverty line. So from this perspective, it is not enough at all.
Good Lord, there's quite a bit of gap there. And Doctor, now, the Turkish Central Bank made some moves today and perhaps intervene one more time. That's not what they're calling it, but it's not the only Turkish Central Bank that has come back with a decision this week. Now, the Fed is gearing to hike interest rates, reportedly. Bank of England has increased the prime rate to 0.25%, and European Central Bank has said that interest rate hike is unlikely, but cut bond buying due to the supply. ongoing supply chain crisis, we are seeing major central banks taking positions against the inflation. Now, of course, what we all want to know, how will this affect Turkey? Will this have any effect on the Turkish economy whatsoever? What's your opinion on that?
From the Turkish central bank perspective, Mr. Türsan, imagine a man holding an ice bag in one hand and then putting the other hand on the stove and then burning it and then putting the ice bag on the definitely. If you are going to reduce interest rate and with this high percentages and then subsequently, then economic theory tells us that exchange rate will hike. That's what's happening, and then it tries to by selling foreign currency dollar into the market to pull it back. So it makes truly no sense from the economics perspective. When we come to the Federal Reserve, the expectation was that at the end of the first quarter of the next year, asset purchase would be completed, would have been completed. But in terms of the interest rates, there were some discussions. Couple of days ago, ex-Treasury Minister Larry Summers made a warning. He said that there is this danger that Federal Reserve may lead to recession through its interest rate hikes if it raises interest rate more than what's required. So what happened? In economic theory, it's called overshooting or undershooting. So what happened? I feel like Federal Reserve heard that warning, and then instead of raising interest rate within a higher percentage toward the end of the next year, they said they are going to raise interest rate 3 times next year. But with the slower rate rises, and then 3 times in the following year, and then they are going to reach to probably about 2.5% at the end of the 2023. That's what's happening in the United States. Probably an inflation target. They changed the wording. It's not temporary anymore. But at the end, according to some other economic figures that we follow to try to understand what's happening with the inflation rate, we can actually. Technically, it is a 2-year Treasury yield and then 10-year Treasury yield in the United States. Those figures tell us that probably in about a 3-year inflation rate will return to approximately 2% in the United States. Europe is another story, Mr. Türsan. Before pandemics, the European economy had been trying to recover from the 2007 and 8 this global financial crisis, and it had not been completely recovered, to be honest. Therefore, Ms. Lagarde, European Central Bank President, probably therefore more cautious than her peers in the United States. She says the most important thing for Europe to recover completely from these, harms of the pandemics, and then they, business usual policy will follow. So probably until 2023, there won't be any rises in Europe. But I don't know if you have heard, Russia today has also increased the interest rates. So, all countries, during the pandemics, they followed these expansionary monetary and fiscal policies, which would naturally, we were expecting that would lead to inflation. There are some other structural problems in Turkey, but together with the pandemics in Turkey, we also, took some measures, and then, those measures naturally led to higher inflation. But now we are completely, following strange policies to tackle with those problems.
Indeed, we are doing exact inverse while the whole world is hiking up interest rates. We're adamant to go down. Now, Doctor, finally, the Treasury and Finance Ministry has announced a new economic model and are calling a production-oriented model. And they're pledging to gear monetary policies towards that. I think in so many words, they're referring to the China model made famous by President Erdogan. Doctor, again, I feel like we're a broken clock here, but I really do want you to emphasize this. Is the China model possible in Turkey at all?
That's not China model. We must underline it. China model was based on investment. They started with the infrastructure investments, huge amounts of infrastructure investments. There was what is called in economics infrastructure gap. They first closed that gap, then followed productive investments. And most of those investments, Mr. Türsan, was provided by the government. We should remember that China is a communist country, technically, and most of the ownership of the capital still is in the hand of the government. Therefore, in Turkey, we are now specifically since 1980, we can call Turkish economy as a capitalist economy. And then the share of the government in economy, specifically, again, in terms of the capital ownership, is now insignificant, trivial. But China, as I said, then after infrastructure investment, they put the productive investment in place so that Chinese economy grew, at incredible rates. After 2003, Turkish economy has also put significant infrastructure in place. We must admit it, okay? Roads, dams, other infrastructures. But then we had expected Turkish private sector to fill in and come in and then put the productive investment in. But investment, specifically private investment, Mr. Türsan, is not just looking for the profit. They are not just looking at the cost of the investment, what's the interest rate. They are, in private investment, we must keep in mind that it's a long-term project, 20-year, 30-year projects, okay? So what they are looking for is a stable country, economically stable, okay, but also politically stable, okay? They are looking for, laws, regulations, etc., that, they can be certain about. Unfortunately, to be honest, between 2003, maybe up to 2013, for about 10 years, Turkey was trying to become the European Union member. We were doing some reforms, etc. So there was this confidence in the Turkish economy and in Turkish political structure. And then there was some investment. But since then, things have changed. Of course, there are political and economic and social reasons behind those changes. But at this point now, unfortunately, Turkey is lacking those conditions for the private sector, domestic private sector and foreign private sectors to come in Turkey and then to close this gap. By just playing with the interest rate, low interest rate, as we have seen for the last couple of months, Turkish Central Bank is reducing interest rate. The interest rate that central bank is controlling is a one big interest rate. But as I said, private sector is looking for long-term interest rate, and long-term interest rate is increasing because there is no confidence in the Turkish economy and the Turkish political institutions and infrastructure. Therefore, they are not investing. Another aspect of this new model, in quotation mark, if you can call it a model, is that they assume, there's a strange assumption there, Mr. Türsan, they assume that if we devalue Turkish lira large enough, then we are going to increase export so that, and reduce import, and then, that will lead to currency surplus, and then Turkish lira will become valuable, and then, inflation rate will come back. But we forget something. Devaluing your depreciation of the Turkish lira actually leads to in your partner trade partner countries, those firms in those countries will be disadvantaged, through Turkish government's policy, and then they are going to ask for retaliation for their government. Okay, at the end, this is not a fair game. So through this policy, Turkey cannot sustain export increases, and that there are some other technical reasons why Turkey has been enjoying this rise in export, to be honest.
I see, Doctor. And, it just might be me, but I don't ever remember Turkey playing fair. Well, that's just kind of a little joke. But, Doctor, it's always good to have you with us. Thank you for your analysis, and thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Türsan.
Our pleasure. In other news, historic developments in Turkish foreign relations. Turkey and Armenia are appointing special envoys. Turkey and Armenia have had no official diplomatic relations since 1993, and the borders have been closed. This is not the first time Turkey has made attempts at contact. However, in early 2000s, Turkish-Armenian Reconciliation Commission was established, but that went nowhere. In 2008, President Abdullah Gül became the first Turkish head of state to visit Armenia, but failed to thaw relations still. It now appears that a new attempt is being made in light of Turkey's recent trend of attempting to normalize relations with its neighboring countries.
In a surprising turn of events, the government's recent trend of improving foreign relations in the region has now turned to Armenia. In a speech to members of parliament this Monday, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu announced that Turkey and Armenia are in the process of appointing special envoys to begin the steps toward normalization of relations. Çavuşoğlu noted that the flights between the Armenian capital of Yerevan and Istanbul will soon begin as the first step in the normalization process. The two countries have officially had no diplomatic relations since 1993, and the time since has been marked by sporadic clashes and failed attempts at normalization. A piece published by Bloomberg earlier this week has fed rumors that Turkey's pursuit of normalization with Armenia has been to win favor with the United States. President Joe Biden reportedly requested from the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan that Turkey initiate normalization with Armenia when the two leaders met on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Rome this past October. With the U.S.-Turkish relations at an all-time low after the S-400 anti-aircraft system purchase from Russia and a potential F-16 fighter sale on the line from the U.S., amounting to over $1 billion, this may be Turkey's first attempt at making amends. In April of this year, Joe Biden's official recognition of the events of 1915 as genocide was met with opposition from Turkey, as it was viewed as a further deterioration of relations between Ankara and Washington. Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu announced Wednesday that the former Turkish ambassador to the United States, Serdar Kılıç, had been appointed to lead the special envoy to discuss normalization. Armenian Foreign Minister Vahan Hunanyan shared a post on social media saying, "Armenia is ready to normalize relations with Turkey without preconditions."
In domestic news, Medyascope gets an exclusive with former HDP co-chair Selahattin Demirtaş. Demirtaş has been behind bars since 2018 and, along with Osman Kavala, was ordered released by the European Human Rights Court. But President Erdogan plainly refuses to do so. Though we have no direct contact with Mr. Demirtaş, we were able to correspond with him through his attorneys. Medyascope's very own Ferit Aslan checked in with the former HDP co-chair.
Selahattin Demirtaş, the former co-leader of the Democratic Party of Peoples, imprisoned in Edirne Penitentiary for over 5 years, answered Medyascope's questions through his lawyers. Change has begun in Turkey. Both the HDP and the Kurds are at the forefront and a part of this change. It is now time where it's necessary to abandon this narrative of grievances and victimhood mentality and embrace a mentality that seeks to help and act with the mission and self-confidence of leaders. There is no AKP or MHP in Turkey's future. They are finished. Now is the time for the leaders of democratic thought to unite and build a new future. Demirtaş also commented on President Erdogan's remarks against the decision to release Osman Kavala and himself, where Erdogan commented, "We do not recognize this decision, simple as that. We are pretending it didn't happen." They are actions on a day-to-day basis completely absent of any type of strategy governed by anger and panic. He knows he can't fix the situation. That's why he has completely given up and says, "Let it be." That strategy doesn't require any intellect or contemplation in any way. So that's why he is able to employ the "let it be" strategy to great effect. Demirtaş also responded to Erdogan saying, "Instead of telling the opposition to hold joint rallies, why don't you go hold a rally yourself?" I guess he forgets from time to time that I'm in prison on his own orders. Maybe he's got amnesia. Maybe he thinks I'm out because I still get involved in politics from prison. May God give him wisdom. What can I say? I tweeted about this. He still hasn't responded.
In the pandemic, amidst the Omicron variant spreading through Turkey, the booster shot dates have been brought up forward. Typically, the third shot would have been scheduled for 6 months after the second, but the ministry is now taking appointments after 3 months. And let's go to those graphics now. Currently, 82% of everyone over 18 have been fully vaccinated. That's good, bringing the total up to 60%. Turkey is the 22nd on the list of most vaccinated countries, right after Iran, Thailand, and the United States. The health ministry is reporting roughly 2.5 million tests, 160,000 cases, 8,157 serious cases, 1,376 deaths between November 27th and December 3rd. The ministry is also reporting 57% bed occupancy, 70% ICU occupancy, and 30% of ventilators in use. And patients are not the only ones hit hard by the pandemic. Healthcare workers across Turkey walked out in a strike on Wednesday and left their posts for one day alone. Nurses, physicians, dentists, and sanitation staff and others report that they are fed up with low pay, long hours, and violence against healthcare workers, which has become more and more prevalent. Medyascope was on the scene.
We started out by demanding that health be everyone's right. As you were probably aware, a bill was withdrawn from Parliament. We, as the Health and Social Services Union, Istanbul Chamber of Physicians, the Turkish Chamber of Physicians, the Dentist Union, and all other unions stuck out when we realized that this bill did not cover all healthcare workers. And we'd be hard-pressed to say that we also don't feel the recent economic downturns ourselves.
We voiced our concerns countless times. We protested for these concerns countless times. And finally, we said, the labor is ours, the decision is ours, and we organized a walk from Istanbul to Ankara. Despite our efforts to voice out our demands, the health ministry truly ignored us and ignored our demands. Later on, a raise bill was introduced to the parliament, but it certainly wasn't just a bill. For instance, it didn't include physicians working in universities, assistants, family physicians. None of them were included in this bill. We again voiced our concerns. We said healthcare is teamwork. And later on, we saw that the bill was withdrawn anyway. As usual, this was nothing but empty promises. They were only stalling. And after that, we said enough is enough. We don't want to run around. We want our right. And we began this walkout in 81 provinces, in front of all hospitals nationwide.
Ülkemiz belki de tarihinde hiç görülmediği...
Our nation is being dragged into a bigoted darkness, the likes of which we have never seen. This bigoted darkness steals our nation's future through its ideological, political and economic choices. And workers of this nation are once again victims of this period of destruction. The workers of this country are not the culprits of this chaos the nation finds itself in. However, through poverty, through oppression, through injustice, we are being used as pawns in an effort to will itself out of this chaos.
And that's it for us in This Week in Turkey. I have been Murat Türsan, and thank you for joining us.
Türkiye'nin sivil, bağımsız, özgür ve çoğulcu bir medya ortamına ihtiyacı var. Medyascope, 20 Ağustos 2015'te bu ihtiyacı karşılamak üzere yola çıktı. Ama yolumuz uzun. Bu yolculukta bize Patreon veya YouTube'un katıl butonu üzerinden katkıda bulunabilirsiniz. Destek verin, sizinle güçlenelim.